So what I did, I took out the original O-ring that came with the arc and I put in a larger washer because I wanted to see if I can, well, first of all, I wanted to reduce any side-to-side play. However, let me be clear, there is no side-to-side play on arc. It's like barely anything. But my original plan, or what I originally tried, was to take a brass or a copper, I think brass washer, which I got from the Skeletal. I sent this in for warranty repair. They sent it back and they had put in these brass washers. So I took this washer, put it in the arc. Problem is this washer is slightly too thin compared to the washer, the arc's washer. As a side note, unfortunately, I lost the original washer from the arc. Last night I was trying to put it back in. I had it in the tweezers and I was going like this, and the tweezers squeezed together and shot the washer over that way somewhere. I looked for about 20 minutes and I cannot find it. It was somewhere on the floor, on the countertop. I don't know, it's just gone. So I found some replacement washers and I'm trying those out. But ultimately I wanted a larger washer, like one of these. And that is what's in there right now. Problem is, I feel like it's giving just a little bit more friction, and I don't know if I like it. So, for example, I can no longer flick it open with one hand. I can, but it's much stiffer, and I think it's just the additional friction from the washer making contact. The original arc washer is 6mm OD, so it's about this size, one of these guys. I went with a much larger one, and that's what's in there now. You can't go too large because this actual stamped out shape is actually the negative version of that on the inside. So there's a little hump on this area, there's an indent on that area, and the washer kind of fits right in there. So too large of a diameter does not fit in that recess. I mean, this would be perfect. I just can't believe, maybe I'm just giving up too easy. Maybe it'll break in if I use it for a couple days. So this is 8mm, and the original one is 6mm. OD, outside diameter. ID is identical, 3.25, which is what the original arc washer was. Thickness, 70, so 0.7mm. The original arc was 0.77, so probably 0.8. I don't know what all this is in standard units. 0.295. So I'm just going to go back to the original washer. Well, I've got these three selected. Since I lost the original washer, I'm trying to replicate or find an equivalent. That is identical to the original, 626. 714 is slightly larger. 710 is slightly larger. I'm just going to go back to the original just to satisfy my curiosity. Make sure it is truly stiffer. One trick, or one thing that I did, is I measured the actual width of the axis and of the device itself, the tool, before I took it apart so I can torque it back to the exact same distance. Torque is a little bit tricky when you're applying torque to screws. It doesn't quite work like that, but for me, that's close enough. I will be happy if I can get it back to the exact distance, and it was 19.54 millimeters at the top width axis. Oh, okay. O-rings are already there to the side. Yeah, I can't tell if the O-ring stayed in position. I think it did. Yep, it's in there. I can see it. Nice. So I'm going to put the screw back in. I'm not going to thread lock it. I'm just going to use this for a few hours and see if I notice a difference. Also, I feel like Leatherman put the axis in backwards. The post was on the left, and the post was on the right, and the screw was on the left. And I thought that would be backwards because removing the main blade would be much easier. Just remove the screw rather than the post, but I don't know. Maybe they don't intend that with the free series. One thing I like about the free series, among many things, is I feel like this is much more open source. They didn't put the security screws on there, so you can just use any Torx bit to unlock it. But it just also seems like it's be so much easier to swap out a part. You can machine your own, or you can buy something aftermarket and just pop it in. Just feels like a more open source design. Like they know users are going to want to have access to their tool. And so they made it a little bit easier. I don't know. I could just be imagining or overanalyzing. I guess I could reverse the axis direction myself. There's no real reason to have to follow what they did from the factory. I know what I'm doing wrong. I'm in the open position. Always easier in the closed. Already too tight. No? Hmm. I don't know. Maybe it's just got to create new seating paths, just new friction, new slightly repositioned tools. Just lost some of their looseness. That's a word. So I'm done for now. I swapped the washer from the arc to a larger one. So the main blade, there was a 6 millimeter OD washer. I swapped it to an 8 millimeter OD washer. I wanted to go to a brass material, but I really couldn't find one. I tried to steal one from my Leatherman Skeletal, but it was too thin. So anyway, putting the arc back together, I matched the tension or the distance of the screw post almost perfectly. And what happens is, as you tighten or loosen this, it will kind of center or uncenter the main blade and some of the other implements. And you want the proper tension. So I took measurements of everything before I disassembled. 19.54 millimeters is the axis screw to screw. However, my washer originally was 0.77 millimeters thick. The new washer is 0.7 millimeters thick, so it's slightly thinner, so everything will shrink in this dimension a bit. So after tweaking everything, trying a few different settings, I'm basically at 19.50, and I have not put threadlocker on there yet, so I may go tighter. But essentially what happened is, by going to a slightly larger washer, you get even more of a solid knife. So there was no play already with the arc. However, when it's closed, you could move this a little tiny bit. See, because that smaller O-ring, smaller washer didn't really give it a flat plane to kind of rest against. I mean, it did, but hey, a little bit wider is even better. So just slightly larger washer in there. It's giving it more of a compression, fit, pancake type effect, and I'm happy with it. Now, I can still flick it open. My Leatherman had loosened up quite a bit before I did this. It was very, very loose. It had broken in. I could flick it open with ease. It looks like at first I couldn't. It was maybe too tight, or just things had to be loosened up, but now it's near perfect. So I'm very happy. I did clean some of these. There was some debris in there. Even between the joints, the flat area, there was some crud, especially in the saw. So once I wiped all that down and put it back together, it's smooth as butter. And don't get me wrong, it was already smooth as butter. There was zero issues with this device. But I wanted to just improve ever so slightly. Really why I started this was to get a brass washer in there. Um, why? Just to tweak with things. I didn't actually have a need, but anyway. So this is perfect, near centered, and especially when I do one-handed opening and I go all the way back with one finger. Sometimes my finger would pull this way and rub it against the wall just slightly. It doesn't do that at all now. And I can still flick it open. Everything one-handed. Yeah. The device is just so much fun to play with. This is a fidget factor times a million, and it's damn useful. I've used this at work so many times. Fixing equipment, making adjustments, opening electrical cabinets, um, hex Allen keys, opening, closing, loosening. I mean, it's just nonstop. I've got the bit kit in my belt pouch. I've got the extension kit, and this thing is just fantastic. And it really is. Don't know what else to say about it. So I'm going to make this permanent by adding threadlocker main screw. Don't have to disassemble anything but the main screw. Loctite 272. Don't know how great this is. I'm sure it's good. I don't know how old it is either. High strength. Can't even get the bottle open. And I think the trick is, I learned last time, less is more. Don't do a whole lot. Giant dab is not really needed. What I'm gonna do is get some thread locker, then I might dab some off. Don't need that much. That's probably good. I think this takes a while to set, so there's no real rush. Not make a mess. I think I already went too tight, just finger tight. Or one-sided tight, yeah. Eh. Tad too tight. Just testing the tension there, that's all. Threading it back and forth. It wasn't actually threading. All right, 1951, 1950. The original was 1954, but I did go from a thicker to a thinner washer, so really I would have expected it to be a little bit more. Oh, that's nice. Okay. I think it's near perfect. Zero slop, zero play in both axes. Opposite side tools were not touched, so they're actually a good comparison as well. We can measure those just to be sure. Come on. I measured those. There we go, 1950.